Hello, I am Ronan Chris Murphy, and welcome to this new episode of Ronan's Recording Show here at recordingbootcamp.com. And I think there's a lot of new folks tuning into this for the first time. Last week I started giving away an ebook that I did a couple years ago, and the number of people who've sort of gotten the book and signed up for the mailing list has been a big number. It made me very happy. Kind of surprised me how big it was. So hopefully there's a lot of new folks here tuned into what we're doing here at Recording Bootcamp. And so welcome. If you don't have the book, just go here. You can get it for free. So it's kind of chaotic. We're scrambling, doing a bunch of stuff. I'm juggling a few albums and getting ready in 3 weeks to head over and work in Italy for 5 weeks, doing some boot camps, working on some records. And the big thing is we're actually developing a bunch of online courses. So finally, a lot of the stuff from Recording Bootcamp, we're trying to find ways that we can make it accessible to the folks that don't have a chance to come to our workshops in Europe or here in Los Angeles. So if you've been following my free stuff for years, this should be pretty exciting because this is going to give me a chance to really just dig in much deeper into these topics than I've ever been able to do in the short videos. But also, if you're completely broke like I was when I started recording and can't afford to take online courses, have no fear. We're going to keep making free videos, and actually we're even ramping up the amount of free stuff we do because, you know, we've got the cameras set up and everything. So while we work on the courses, we're constantly going to be making free stuff because, again, not everybody can travel to some cool location for a workshop, and not everybody can put down their credit card and take an online course. So we'll keep doing stuff for you, like this one. And so the thing with this one is one of the most common questions I get when I'm doing the recording boot camps. We diving into compression, and we get in deep. It's like an entire day of just like compression and dynamics. And one question always comes up from one of the students: compression and EQ, which one should come first? And that is an awesome question. There's not a definitive answer because, of course, the answer is always like, I don't know. Try it both ways. See which one gets you closer to the sounds you're looking for. But there are a couple kind of general guidelines or ways to approach thinking about this that might help get you to the end result you want a little bit faster. So here it is, the general rule, and again, there are exceptions, but the general rule for this is subtractive EQ before compression, additive EQ after compression. So let me just show you real quick why we really want to do this sort of subtractive EQ before compression. So let's check this out. We're going to take a look now at why we might want to do some of that subtractive EQ stuff first before we start doing compression. But by the way, here's the Recording Bootcamp page, and if you didn't get that free book, just go and click free ebook, and yeah, you can just sign up here, get some info about it, and we will send that free book off to you right away. But more importantly, let's get into making fun music. So we're in Pro Tools now, and this obviously will be the same in any DAW that you're working in, and the concepts, of course, are the same even if you're working with hardware. But I've got this guitar sound, and it's a pretty thick, meaty guitar sound. It's a Martin guitar played by Dave Nachmanoff, recorded with a AEA KU4 ribbon mic, so big fat guitar sound, and it might have even had a little bit of compression on the way in. So pretty cool sound, but there's a lot of times where we might want to actually be more aggressive with the compression. A lot of times we might want to do that. So I'll pull up this Elysia that I've been playing with lately and kind of digging. And let's just go ahead and start lowering the threshold and getting some gain reduction out of this. Okay, so we're doing about 6 dB of gain reduction, and I'm just going to do it so it's easier to compare here. I'm going to do a little bit of gain makeup at the end. So we can hear this in and out. And by the way, with this plugin and Pro Tools here, this brown is going to be bypassed, and gray means we're using it. So without. Yeah, so a little bit more consistent, a little bit more big and powerful, kind of one of the reasons we often reach for a compressor. But there's a lot of styles of music, you know, contemporary Nashville country stuff, modern rock, you know, guitar, sort of pop, acoustic pop stuff, where we want to go for actually more aggressive compression, one with very fast attack times. And with the fast attack times, it's going to actually kind of reduce the attack, and in this case that's going to be pick attack, so a lot of the pick attack will go away. And also as we go to a faster release time, it's actually going to bring out a little bit more consistent sustain from the instrument. So let's give that a whirl. And just so you know, I'm going to be going kind of over the top here just so we can focus in. I really want you to hear the artifacts of what we're talking about. So let's go aggressive with this. There we go. So it certainly did that. We roped in the pick attack a little bit, brought out the sustain a little bit, but hopefully you heard something else going on, and that is distortion. So let me do this again. I'm going to bypass it and then drop this in and see if you can hear not only the sort of dynamic and envelope change, but see if you can actually hear the distortion. Are you hearing that? And what we're hearing here is, again, distortion. And this isn't a fault of the Elysia compressor. This is what compressors do. When you have fast attacks and fast releases, you're going to start to introduce distortion into the audio, especially with low frequencies. So one of the things we can experiment with is if we're going to end up cutting off the low frequencies anyway, because that's very, very common in the kind of music we might have, this sort of guitar part, is to actually reduce the lows to get them out of the way of, to get the guitar out of the way of the kick drum and the bass guitar, and give us a little more natural sparkle and air without having to push up high frequencies. So let's check this out. I've got this EQ, free one that came with the DAW, and we're going to go ahead and do a high pass filter. Fancy name for the thing that cuts off the low end. And let's take a listen to that. So you hear how a lot of that woolliness, that crunch and fuzz in the low end is going away. So all of a sudden we have a much cleaner, natural guitar sound. Again, it's still pretty aggressive because we're pushing it over the top. So what's happening now that we've reduced this, we actually are pushing less energy into the compressors. The compressor is not having to work as hard because we reduce those low frequencies that we're not going to keep anyway. But check this out now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play this way, and then I'm going to move the EQ down after the compressor. And I want you to hear the difference in sound. Do you notice there that when we move it after the compressor down here, we have similar frequency response, but notice how it starts to sound like kind of a cheap, crappy compressor, kind of fuzzy, almost broken. And when we move it up here before, again, it's still very aggressive what we're doing now, but it sounds a lot smoother. We're maintaining more detail from the guitar and getting less of the fuzz. So here, I'll do that one more time, starting with it after. And before. and after. Because even though we're cutting off frequencies, low frequencies in the guitar here, this compressor has to do all of its really hard work on all those low frequencies that we're not going to keep anyway. So this is a really good general approach. So for instance, if you had a voice that was going to be brighter and thinner in the mix, cut off the low end so the vocal compressor doesn't have to work as hard. If you've got a strident vocal, like female edgy vocal that can have a lot of like edgy mid-range that you're not going to keep, reduce that before the compressor. Same thing with things like sibilants and things like that. Anytime you can get rid of stuff that you're not going to want in the final mix before you start hitting the compressors, it generally sounds better and gives you more control. Of course, with compression, half the fun of it is going over the top and doing ridiculous things. But I usually find, even when I'm doing something really aggressive and colored, that I like the results better if I'm really manipulating the compressor with the frequencies that I'm going to want in the final. So I'm generally doing subtractive EQ as one of the very first things in my chain, and actually subtractive EQ accounts for most of the EQ I actually end up doing. And just real quick, just so you don't start thinking this plugin is just a distortion machine, we'll actually scale it back to some smoother attack and release settings. There we go. So this is going to work on any instrument that you might do. And of course, the great thing about working in the DAW is it's about 2 seconds out of your life to try pulling your EQs before or after compression to see which one suits the creative vision that you're working on for your record. So the other side of that general rule or general guidelines of additive EQ after compression is for this reason, because when we start boosting EQ, we're actually boosting energy, we're boosting voltage. And for the most part, except for our multi-band compressors, they don't care. They just see, ooh, spike of energy, let's start smacking stuff down. So a lot of times, if we do a boost with our EQ, a compressor following it will actually kind of try and push that back down. So in a sense, maybe making your EQ boost less effective. So that's our general guideline, our general rule of thumb, but I don't want to say that's a golden rule or a law at all, because sometimes cool stuff happens. And, you know, Chris Lord-Alge, one of the techniques apparently that he does a lot is really radical EQ boosts, kind of up in the high mids, followed by really radical compression, sort of smushing those back down. And that helps give it that really, really aggressive forward thing where everything is like, on the edge and smush back and biting, that very powerful Chris Lord-Alge sound. So I'm certainly not going to say Chris Lord-Alge does not know what he's doing when he's mixing a record. Obviously, he's probably the most successful mixer in the history of mankind. So there are exceptions, but when you're working on your own stuff, again, working fast, the general principle is, again, get rid of that energy before it hits the compressor so the compressor doesn't have to do any extra work. And once you've kind of got the dynamics and the envelope of your signal the way you like it, then we can use some additive if we need to help sort of showcase certain frequencies or push up energy in a way that's not going to get maybe adversely affected by the compressor after the fact. So that's it. I hope that is helpful and helps you unleash some of your own creativity in the studio. Please keep checking back at recordingbootcamp.com to see what we're up to. We've got some fun things in the works. And of course, if you've got friends that you think might dig what we are doing here, please spread the word. The more, the merrier. All right, so have fun, stay focused on the music, and the rest will kind of take care of itself.